Gentlemen, welcome to Emirates NBD's podcast studio at the Dubai FinTech Summit. It's a pleasure to have you here. My name is Sarginson. I'll be the host for this podcast. We might do a quick round of intros. I'll start with Mark. Mark, what do you do at the bank?
Sure, I'm Mark Newfield. I look after the compliance systems. I'm the group head of compliance systems.
Thank you, Mark. Great to have you here. Ray?
So I'm the Chief Data and Analytics Officer. So it's kind of two components to that. There's an advanced analytics COE, and then there's the whole data governance side.
Okay, cool. And Vikram?
Thanks, Sean. Glad to be here. My name is Vikram Sandhu. I'm responsible for digital experience and transformation for the bank.
All right. So we're here to talk about enhancing customer experience with Gen AI. You gentlemen were just on a panel with Nasira talking about all things Gen AI. It feels like everyone's talking about Gen AI these days. You can't really go anywhere without hearing it. So we're hopefully going to demystify it a little bit for our customers, our partners, and our people. So maybe I'll start with Ray and sort of high level, what's Gen AI, from a data perspective? How do we understand it at the bank?
Okay, so Gen AI is it's a relatively new capability. Okay, and at its center, it's able to process huge amounts of unstructured data. So unstructured data is text, it's video, it's audio, it's images. And traditionally, that's a difficult data set to work with. Okay, if you look at most computer systems, traditional machine learning, advanced analytics, it works very well with numeric and tabular data. Whereas Gen AI works very well with unstructured data. What it can do as well, in addition to this, is it can generate responses that are very human-like, very plausible. Again, that whole capability doesn't exist. It didn't exist prior to Gen AI. So that's essentially what Gen AI is.
Okay, thank you, Ray. From a compliance perspective, have you already started to apply it to certain use cases, or how are you sort of broaching the topic of Gen AI?
I think there's a lot of opportunity in compliance. Compliance has a lot of mundane activities. We have a lot of operations activities, level 1 and level 2. And level 1 is ripe for automation, and Gen AI is the solution to doing that. We're looking at a number of use cases. The kind of solution that I see at the moment is maybe not replacing a human being, but what we call a co-pilot, something that sits next to the human being that summarizes the data and gives the human being the basics digested so that they can quickly make a decision.
Got you. So all of this unstructured data, compliance is basically a data trove of unstructured data, lots of different formats, pictures. So it's a good place to start when thinking about applying Gen AI technology.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're the biggest consumer of data in the bank. We look at a lot of data, and some of it is in an unstructured format. So Gen AI is really optimal at digesting that data.
All right, cool. Maybe moving away from compliance and sort of the broader bank, Vikram, where do you see some of the use cases appearing around Gen AI?
Really across the bank, it's difficult to pinpoint a particular function and say this is where it to me it depends what problem are you trying to solve, and is this the right tool and capability to solve that problem? So Ray mentioned, right? You've got a capability that does very well with unstructured data. So where do we have that? Wherever we have that, what kind of a opportunity lies over there to use something, in this case, generative AI, to help solve and, build on that opportunity. So we've got use cases internally with human resources, got use cases with our operations team, our call centers, credit team, with compliance teams, with a lot of different places where you believe that Gen AI can provide that personalized, that more human-like interaction, right? Which other capabilities which other technologies rather don't bring to the table?
Yeah, there is the risk of, it's a hammer and all you see is nails. Now with Gen AI, I feel like everything has to be somehow Gen AI today.
I'm actually, I'm Mr. Anti-hype, really. Okay, so every now and then you get a technology or something else which comes out with a lot of hype, you go through the hype cycle, right? Like Gartner would call the hype cycle. We're there right now with Gen AI. I'm of course a huge believer. That's why, we're practitioners and we've been tasked to help deliver this for the bank. But I think we need to look beyond the hype and need to, like you said, you can't paint everything with the same brush, and you can't take a big hammer to every fight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so I see a lot of use cases and benefits for the bank itself, for its internal process, but we had talk also about the customer experience, right? And so maybe Ray, back to you. Where do you see sort of the first use cases actually changing or giving a step change outcome for customers?
Okay. Well, again, at the heart of this is the ability to unlock business value from unstructured data. Okay. So this means that what we can do is we can use Gen AI to process information about our customers. So let's say their calls that we make to them, calls they make to us, looking at the descriptions of the transactions that they may have, even looking at things like their social media footprint. All of this then gives us, let's say, an additional insight into the preferences, the behaviors, and the sentiment of our customers. And with that additional insight, you should be able to then tailor our products, our services, and our communications with our customers. And by tailoring it, it allows this. When you think about it, actually, it's been long talked about, this idea of moving away from product and service-centric banking to customer-centric banking. It's a difficult thing to do. Okay, Gen AI is going to really help us leapfrog on that journey. So this means, let's say, for a standard product, let's say, a personal loan, instead of just giving the same personal loan to all of our customers, we can use these additional insights to say, actually, no, this customer is a valuable customer. In the lifetime value of this customer is higher than that customer. So let's give them a particular interest rate, let's say, on a personal loan. Similarly, if you're talking about services, and a customer rings into a call center, they've got a particular complaint or some issue they want resolved. If you're able to then, in an assistive way, as Marcus said, have a Gen AI assistant that's sitting beside your customer service agent saying, okay, look, let me just debrief you on the last number of interactions we've had with this customer. They've used this ATM. That's the experience they've had. They've rang in 4 times in the last month. This is the level of sentiment they had. This was the topic. This is what was resolved. And again, with this additional context and information that the service agent will have, the customer experience will be better. So essentially, what's very important about Gen AI is that it helps banks, understand, engage, and serve their customers better. And that's what customer experience is all about.
Inshallah, let's hope we get there indeed. Maybe on going back to the compliance world, we're at the Dubai FinTech Summit. There's loads of fintechs here, right? They're all using Gen AI in one way or another. We also have the big technology partners, which we work very closely with. What's your view when you look at these, problems and these use cases in compliance? Is it, do you go to Ray and Vikram first? Do you think, okay, I should look at partners as well? Or is it a mix? How do you kind of think about that?
I heard Gen AI described in an interesting way last week. Someone said it's a solution looking for a problem, which I thought was quite funny. It's got the technology, it's got the potential to solve lots of problems, and we're just throwing different ideas at it now to see which one is right for the use case. Much like Vikram said, it's not everything is going to be right for Gen AI, but we're still experimenting with which ones are the right idea. So what was the other part of your question?
So are we looking to build ourselves internally? Are we looking to partner? Are we doing a bit of both?
We're definitely looking to build internally at the moment, but it's not cheap to build, to be honest. We had a FinTech day where we, in 2 days, we built this amazing prototype. And then I said to the team, okay, so how do we operationalize this? How do we supercharge this and get into production? And they said, that'll be 2 million dirhams and 1 year. So it's not quite there yet, but there's a lot of work involved. The potential, it's very quick to build a prototype, but to operationalize it, there's still a lot of challenges which we have to overcome internally.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think we had a Gen AI day a couple of weeks ago at the bank, right, Vikram? What were some of the highlights of that? Did some of these challenges also surface?
Yeah, they did. So I'll come to that. I just touch upon what Mark was saying earlier too. we're pretty cognizant of when there's a certain problem it needs solving, right? Even if we try to approach it with Gen AI, we're happy to walk back if we believe that there is something else which can do the job better, faster, cheaper, right? And we have had real life experiences where you said, I'm going to park Gen AI for phase 2 of an engagement because that's not needed in phase 1, right? Let's build the building blocks using something else which was better. Now, the Gen AI day was useful. We followed a hackathon which we'd done, right? And Gen AI day was the opposite of that. It was not engineers, it was business practitioners. So the business folks who we would work with, the ones who would think of opportunities where we can help, whether with or without Gen AI. And we had a little bit of a mix. We had some internal speakers, mostly talking about the lessons learned. What have we done so far? What have we seen? Like you take this podcast and you just expand on that. Then we had a couple of industry partners. Microsoft was there, absolutely. And then OpenAI, which is cool. And thanks for recognizing that. And, really hearing from OpenAI themselves was incredible because really they're the ones who founded the storm, which is called ChatGPT. And there's so many different aspects of generative AI capability, which we were discussing as opposed to just the financial and ROI-based stuff. Then last but not the least, we had some partner banks, right, who were kind enough to join us and share their experience of building, starting to building and scaling a generative AI capability, much like you would do with any other technology for that matter, right? But it was good to hear firsthand their experiences, how they were structured, what their operating model was, where did they find their wins. It also helped cut through the hype of, Ryan, this can solve everything. It cannot. At least we don't know right now. But there are certain things where we can really leverage it very well along with other, complementary capabilities. So that was the theme of the day. A lot of the folks, the feedback we received from them was they left with a lot of ideas and a little more realism of what's the art of possible. And now we need to use that to continue building that book of work, which is going to drive better experiences really for our customers, better productivity for the bank.
Yeah. I remember with Ray, we always talk about use cases. And I feel like now you've got an embarrassment of choice of use cases when it comes to data or Gen AI, or at least everyone's very excited to kind of give you more use cases. From a bank-wide sort of infrastructure perspective, right? We're talking about the cost. Like, what are you thinking about there, and how is the bank approaching that?
Infra and cost?
Yes.
Okay. So I think this is important. Gen AI is generally not free. In fact, it's often very, very expensive, and it's charged on a per uses basis. So they have these things called tokens, and every time you have an interaction with ChatGPT, for instance, it involves 20, 30, maybe a couple of hundred tokens, and every one of those is charged. Okay, so if you've got a Gen AI use case that has a token footprint in the thousands, it's going to be extraordinarily expensive very, very quickly. Okay, so this means that we need to think about, just even from a cost perspective, we need to think about hosting our own large language models internally. And we need to do this anyway, because not all large language models are the same. Some are better at certain things. Some are, let's say, question and answering versus summarization versus language translation. They all have their different suites. So we do need to have this portfolio of use cases. Now, when you get into the idea, though, of hosting a large language model internally, then you need particular types of infrastructure. You need GPUs. GPUs are expensive. And they're not standard infrastructure, so even the all of the tool chain around them is additional expense. They're difficult to get. They've got long lead times, but we've started that journey, and now we have one right now. We've got 4 on order, and we are going to build up our internal capability. Okay, in terms of hosting large language models and Gen AI internally. In the end, it is going to be a portfolio approach in terms of how we build our solutions. And I'm not just talking about Gen AI. I do think that all, let's say, use cases, all AI solutions will have multiple elements. Okay, Gen AI typically is just one element. Okay, you very often would have automation in place. You would have standard data processing, building the data pipelines. You would have advanced analytics. You would have traditional machine learning models, and all of these each doing their own, playing to their own strengths. Basically, will deliver a solution. We've looked at a number of use cases. I mean, if you think about, let's say a wealth use case, and you wanted to, and it's one we're looking at right now. So you want to actually push wealth. Wealth is important within ENBD. It's one of the strategic priorities. So it comes to myself and Vikram to say, what can you do in the wealth space? Okay. And one of the things there would be, okay, so can we identify for our relationship managers, let's say in the private bank or the priority bank, can we identify or predict what customers would respond well to a wealth proposition? Okay. Now, you build that using standard machine learning technology because standard machine learning models are good at predicting. You then need a component that might say, okay, well, what's the pricing for this and what's the timing? When do we make the offer? Again, because we're predicting something here, this is either standard machine learning or standard advanced analytics that would do this. But then it comes to the point of, okay, so let's make the offer basically. And then you use Gen AI. Gen AI would be used to say, okay, let's hyper-personalize, as Vikram said, the offer to actually speak in the language, talking about human language, actually just in the idioms and the way that this particular type of customer would respond best in. And that's where Gen AI plays its role. Okay. So that's why I'm trying to get across this view that it's multifaceted.
Yeah. No, that definitely comes across a much more nuanced approach. And I feel like at the bank, we're talking with the business on the technical side, we're talking with customers, we're talking with partners to kind of understand where this plays best.
And I could add to that.
Yeah, jump
right?
in.
So, and here is a long time. Like, and here is a long time when it comes to a new technology and capability. Like, yeah, a lot has happened. And Gray's point, it is still prohibitively expensive if you just try to throw everything, use this technology to solve that. But it's getting better very quickly. In our recent conversations with some of the folks I mentioned earlier from the industry, what I'm learning is in the coming times, near term, right, we're going to be these models, right, and their capability to leverage, ingest more data and use less tokens is going to get better. So, there are going to be less expensive to use. They're going to do more with less. Okay, that's one. But again, as an organization, you have to be clear of what you're trying to solve for. You go back 7, 8, 10 years ago when robotics was a rage, and then there was a theme that there'll be a bot for every employee. It did not materialize. It hasn't, no matter how many more hype cycles we've been through about the same, because it didn't make sense. It wasn't productive. And you actually needed to be someone who had a fair amount of coding capability and as a developer, to be able to use a bot for yourself. You couldn't just, it wouldn't appear out of nowhere to help you. It's the same thing. Everyone has downloaded and is using a private version of ChatGPT provided by OpenAI services. But putting that into a business context, right? Feeding it the unstructured data you want it to solve for, writing the right prompts and building the infrastructure around something which can deliver in a corporate environment, it's not the same as putting it on your phone and using it,
everything and anything.
Exactly, to pull a recipe or something like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Sean, you asked the question earlier about buy versus build. And I think, obviously Ray touched on the cost of owning these servers. But one thing that I'm conscious of is we get these vendors coming into the compliance space and they say, we can do this for you and we'll just charge you a measly $2 per customer. I think the cost of this technology is coming down quickly, and that $2 may sound cheap today, but 3 years from now, you might really have egg on your face when this is going for 1 cent a transaction, 1 cent a customer. So I think, I wouldn't be prepared to lock into any long-term costs. pricing models.
We've seen that, right? We've seen that with other things out there, right? It could start off as prohibitive, but then give it 4 years maturity. You've got a broader landscape of models of providers and vendors out there, which is exactly what's happening.
Yeah, open sourcing with Llama 3, right? With Facebook. So there's a huge amount we could unpack. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time. But maybe one last question to each of my guests here. We're at the Dubai FinTech Summit. The UAE is investing a lot in Gen AI. If you had sort of one message for our customers or one thing that you look forward to at the Dubai FinTech Summit, what would it be? Who wants to go first?
Right. One message for our customers.
Yes.
Generative AI or not, our focus has been on providing the best experience possible to our customers in every single interaction we have with them, whether it's their first engagement with us, whether it's an ongoing interaction they have as an existing customer. So, that doesn't change, and we don't deviate from that. Capabilities will come and go, and we will use what we have to, but keep delivering on that experience.
All right. Thank you, Vikram. Right?
Right. Well, I think for the customers, I think what we should say is that, and we've talked about this already, the fact that Gen AI is going to be assistive, and it's going to remain assistive. Now, the most important thing about customer experience is to be talking to people, informed people. Okay, so you're ringing a banking agent basically, and that is actually a bot. I can guarantee you your experience is not going to be as good as if you're talking to a person who's actually well informed. So that's I guess that's one message in terms of how ENBD is approaching Gen AI. At FinTech, one of the things I do, I see a lot of vendors. Okay, a lot of vendors coming up saying, I don't know, what are you doing? We've got a Gen AI solution for that. The one area that actually I'm really interested in finding out about is processing of internal data so that it's actually useful for Gen AI. Looking at all of our huge amounts of unstructured data that we have, how do we need to pre-process that so that it's actually useful and produces good outcomes? Because Gen AI is like every other technology, rubbish in, rubbish out. If there are vendors out there that actually do help in terms of pre-process data chunking, understanding our internal data, getting data quality values for that data for our Gen AI solutions, I'm happy to talk.
All right. Yes. Mark?
I think Vikram and Ray are spot on. Vikram mentioned that, customer focus, right? We're laser focused on delivering a better experience to our customers, and Gen AI can help with that. Fintechs can help with that. They're not the only solutions out there, but we're going to ensure that we give better customer services. As Ray said, we don't want customers phoning up and speaking to a bot. We want them in touch with humans who have access to all of their information and can make decisions to help the customers.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Have a great Dubai FinTech Summit.
Thank you.